business. If you're distributing it, and that's kilo quantities, bale quantities. If you're doing large amounts and you're a supplier, then the feds get involved. They also get involved if you're providing it to children. That's one of their high priorities, is to make sure marijuana is not getting into the hands of underage people.
But small-time growing isn't considered a major transaction.
Small-time growing at this point would come into tribal court, where you could face up to a year in the tribal jail.
So it's just tribal. It's not the feds actually. Like what he said, it's the federal jurisdiction, but it's not really the feds that you're going to have to be dealing with.
Well, the feds can prosecute any amount they want. Down to simple possession. It is illegal under federal law even to have simple possession. As a practical matter for years, they've tried to, focus their resources on larger amounts. And as a policy matter for the last year and a half, they officially are prioritizing that. Without saying they're letting the small players go, they're saying we're going for the big players. So you can read between the lines on how they're doing it. But it is still, in all quantities, under all circumstances, illegal under federal law.
Only on feds?
No, federal law is illegal throughout the entire United States.
Okay.
So that's what Milton Haskins says they're having problems in Olympia. That's why they're having problems. It's a matter of scale. The state of Washington in its entirety is out of compliance with federal law. Okay. But they're a big fish. They're a hard target for the feds to take down the entire state.
Did Washington, D.C. just pass theirs yesterday?
I believe they did. They're kind of riding the wave.
Federal capital?
But let me tell you something else though that happened. And this is, you need to sort of understand, is it's a different law entirely, but it's a similar government process. For example, there are laws out there on immigration. The president directed that those laws not be enforced. He didn't make laws or change laws. He just told Homeland Security stop enforcing some of those immigration laws. For that, the administration was taken into court, and last I heard there was a federal judge says the president does have that discretion. Well, it's a similar process with marijuana laws. A number of conservative states could get together and sue the administration and say, you don't have a choice. You must enforce the federal marijuana laws. And then there goes Washington, Colorado, and everybody else. That hasn't happened yet. But that's the uncertain legal environment that I don't think there's an attorney in the country can tell you which way it's going to go. So anything that's moving towards legalization is risky. And a tribe is more, how do I say this? The strings attached to the federal government, they're a little bit more direct than with the state. And so that's what we say, is that legalizing possession of marijuana is not going to endanger federal grant money, which is the only proposal being talked about here. Growing and distributing, that's a whole other story, and that's something that would have to be weighed very carefully.
And if you guys have comments, please turn them in. And on your papers, I did send, there is an email address for you to send your comments if you'd like to send them right now. And there's also a date on there where we're going to have a second committee meeting on May 27th. You're more than welcome to attend and state your comments there also.
Is that where Brooke's going to come and just let us know, or let you guys know what he found out, how the state is handling HUD? I remember being at that meeting and he was supposed to talk with some of the state guys on how they're handling their HUD issues.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he'll have an answer.
Yeah.
He's going to be there, whether he has an answer or not, we don't know. Plus, we wanted our chief of police or acting chief of police here too tonight to get his input on what would happen if, what would happen if. He's on his way home right now from academy graduation. He said he could answer all of your questions.
There has been situations where people have grown and there's plans that they haven't been charged anything about it. To answer his question.
How did this amendment even come to be on the table? Who's making that request? For us to be considering an amendment to a law that already exists.
Washington State.
So, you know, I don't know whether we have the social data on the amount of problems that drugs cause, the suicides, the ERs, the jails are full. Look at the data, look at the rosters. The drugs are a major problem. The breakdown of families and everything else, whether it's an ounce, 2 ounces or more. I don't know how many people could just carry around 1 ounce. So, I don't know how the amendment even came to the floor of our business council. Whose request was that?
I don't know.
Very tough question to answer. I think this issue has been on the table since Colorado first legalized marijuana. And now that Washington has it, it's really hit us right at home. And this actually, the main, I think the Law and Justice Committee had received a lot of inquiries as to what happens from the Police Department, prosecutor's office, and everybody else over there in our legal system. By the way, the question was kind of like, I was kind of, I guess they were talking about if the traffic police stop an Indian and a white person. And the white person is, what happens to them? Who gets charged? Who has to go to jail? So it was kind of thought at the time, and it's unfair for the Indian to be the only one charged or taken into jail. So we wanted equality there. Well, not necessarily me, but the question was posed to council, like, what do we do? We have to do something. We have to either do something or do nothing. And that's why we're here today. We're going to discuss the issue. What do we do? So, you know, we're not going to evade any question. You know, we're going to bring it to the table. And if it fails, it fails. If it passes, it passes. Or through these discussions, we come to another agreement. That's fine. But currently, Mel and I were discussing a little bit of what was going on here. And we're taking suggestions, and we're going to move forward with a lot of these issues. We're not just going to sit on it. I think we will network. Well, tomorrow I'm going to network at the marijuana conference at Toledo, and we're going to try to bring in professionals and form a panel and discuss these issues so everyone can get the proper information at us. We're not going to sit on that. We want good information coming to the people.
I just think we have more important things to be talking about, problems to deal with.
Well, this actually is the problem. Drugs, suicide, all this stuff on the reservation, and this may be a step to it. So we're addressing it. And a lot of this may lead to, we'll get the panel, we'll have our discussions, we'll try to inform our people of what's going on, and then I would support a referendum right at the moment, but then part of our meetings will be what questions we're going to have on the referendum. I think that there are multiple questions here. But I think right now, you can read this fact sheet, and there is talk about why do you go for decriminalization versus legalization. Well, the public defender's office is in there, and they were giving us a scenario where who's going to be affected by this? Let's say we pass a decriminalization part, people would be fined, and who would that hurt? The white person may not even pay the fine, may not go to our courts. Tribal members who couldn't afford the fines, they're going to be the ones affected. So it's going to be our poor people going to be affected. They're going to hold their per capita, and they're going to pay. We're going to collect from them. So we're kind of we're hurting our poor people in that scenario. So that's kind of why the table when kind of decided to look at the legalization part, so it doesn't hurt our poor people. I guess, and we could have sat over there and this could have been on the table for 2 more years, 4 more years, 6 more years, or whatever the case is. But we decided, let's bring it to the people and let you guys decide. And that's why we're here tonight.
I think we have to be careful about generalizing drugs. And it's a lot of different things. It's not just, you can't just put them all together. I mean, most of the problem drugs we have in our community are prescription drugs. It's not marijuana, it's not the naturals. And I think by having this law, we're taking away our Justice Department's ability to regulate it, to make sure those other drugs that are the problems are being sought. They have to waste some time and money with all this other stuff that is legal in the state, but they still have to spend money on it. And now you get people who have the prescription drugs that are selling them, they can get away with it.
I would like to say, I was one of the people in council chambers that did bring that question forward and asked these guys, it's just not fair where you do have a non and you have a tribal member getting pulled over and they both have their pieces or whatever it is. It's just not fair that the tribal member has to go to court, will go to court, pay the fine, go through the process, and the law nothing happens. And to me, it just wasn't a fair process. And I asked this question, and when they said, oh, we're going to bring up decriminalization, and I remember having, a talk with Mike when we're sitting there talking. I said, it's still not fair, really, because the Indian is going to be the one that lives here all their life and everything, and is still going to have to go to the court. You're still using all the resources of the police officer, the prosecutor, the public defender, the court, the judge. What is that worth and how much that is costing? So it is an important issue of regarding the legalization of this, because it's like a lot of manpower that we're paying for this. There's that added cost that you have to pay in this process to keep it where it's like driving without a license and suspended. There's so many of those things in our courts. And I don't mean to say it as disrespectful, but it's a waste of our time. There is a lot more other crimes that we need to address instead of having somebody come in there using the police for it, filing the complaint, going to court, everybody being there. It's a waste of our resources, and we need to take more care of it. I mean, not more care, but the issues of domestic violence, because families or whatever, there's more reasons why this needs to happen.
When we build the casino, or we're in the process of building the casino, and we're trying to get tourists from other states, even Canada, to come down here. And if by the way it is now, we're forcing them to sort of navigate 2 sets of laws, state law and then tribal law. What can they do here that they can't do over there? And that may prevent people from choosing to come to our casinos when they can go to Quest or Coeur d'Alene, or not corrections inside of the coastal tribe.
I guess my concern is that it's always stated that people that start using marijuana then get into other drugs. Start, we're saying it's okay, and, are we gonna add to the problem?
That's a really good point. Big question is, marijuana a gateway to using other drugs? And I don't know if I ever know that answer, but that's part of the panel that we're gonna try to bring in and answer those questions. And, I'm going to bring a point here that's, I haven't really thought about that much, but this is a very, very complex issue here. Because if you look at it, here we're bringing a casino in, probably going to take care of people gambling, and that's not good. We have approved our smoke shots. You know, nicotine is not good for you. We have, we're looking at approving alcohol to be sold in our stores. Well, our liquor is not good for you. So, you know, we're kind of overlooking these things that we have that are all bad, and we're all approving these things. So then the next question comes to council is like, we're aware of all these issues that probably lead to leads to addictions and possible suicide and all these other social issues. So how do we address those at the council table? We've got our pockets, our general fund is only so big. So we've got to pay for combating these things with treatment centers and stuff like that. So I think, where does that money come from? So perhaps some of the council might think, perhaps the answer ultimately might be even just to be a grower and to just only sell for medical marijuana purposes. And that would be regulated by the state. The regulations would be stricter than gaming regulations. You know, we can make regulations what we want. I guess I'm saying we can make them stricter. So so you have that type of outlook on things. And then if we have income, the income from that is potentially millions of dollars. We could build treatment centers. We could build wellness centers. We could do a lot to combat the drug problems that we have. I'm not looking at marijuana being the only drug. I'm looking at alcohol being a drug, cigarettes being a drug. All these things are drugs. So we have to, as councilmen here, we work as policymakers or whatever. That's what we're looking at, the big picture, and we want the people to understand the big picture. So could it benefit to try to move into these other areas? I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. So that's why we're here listening also. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, when I applied for my liquor license in the state, and I posted it in my store when I have a tobacco store. And when they finally got the officers to come around and check your check your cigarette. And one thing I was reading, and I can't remember what it was that they brought to me. And it says in there that when you're selling alcohol, and if you know, and it's in the tribal thing, I don't know if it's amendment or member, but it says in there, if you know they are non-alcoholic and have problems with alcohol, you are not to sell them. And I see that going on over there in this field, all around. People that are selling alcohol, they know that alcohol is yeah.
Just want to add a little more on the marijuana business. For one thing, it's illegal, it's a federal law, which means black is black, white is white. And if you are going to legalize something like for medical, then that part needs to be put in the code, and maybe then they may not prosecute them for, because it's medical anyway. The others, it's still illegal, and whether they're medical marijuana or not, it's on the reservation is illegal. And I don't know, a lot of you have worked in a lot of fields. I've worked mostly in social field, I've worked with children and family services, family preservation, mental health, and worked in a lot of the schools as a teacher also. So I work with children and people for a long time. And the kids talk. And this is where I see all of this is affecting the kids. They start out maybe smoking marijuana, but then they might go into alcohol, they might go into other kind of drugs. And it just really, it grows. And then when they get 25 or 30, they wish they had been done cancer because of looking. And then this is where we need places where we need to help the ones that are already hooked and get them off of it. But we haven't really put our resources in that effect. And we need to do that. Yeah, I know we're going to stop, and I know people from doing this, it'll be better. Teenagers, they kind of do their own thing, and they want to try to, 12 years old, you gotta be their own person and go from there. But it's really bad. When I've worked in places where I've had to take children to hospitals because they drank too much and I haven't gotten there within a half hour of them there. I've worked with these children that have been under drugs. And it's not pretty to see, like Kelly said, she works with, she was on the answering all the questions from the police department. I was lucky that with this one boy here, he drank kind of whiskey down by the center. He ran up to the road. The reason he ran was they said, you can't drink this one. He said, oh yes, I can. He said, no, you can't. Resisted you can. So he checked blood. He drank the whole thing. The pint, and he started running up the road. And he hit the main road and he started going to the east side. Well, by the time he came under the underpass, boom, down he went. And he was lucky that I just came by right close by, but there was a policeman behind. So I had to call a judge to take him under custody because I wasn't his parent. And his parent was probably from Yakima. So I'd go to the hospital with him. And if they hadn't pumped him right then, because of his running, he got his blood going, it did him in. This happens also with other drugs. And when your blood's going to be moving fast, it goes to your body quicker. It affects your organs. Like with alcohol, it can make your liver and everything just stop, including your heart. So these are the things I see with young children. And I like to talk to teenagers. I like them to know. I like to educate them on what I know. And I don't know a lot. I've been to alcoholic high school with my son because he needed to go. And I sat in family sessions. And in Peacemaker, we have a lot of people that tell us what we're doing. So I see a lot of different people. And it's hard. And unless you see that with your own kids, they can hide it pretty well too. I've had 4 kids, but now I have a lot of grandkids, and even my great-grandkids are teenagers. So I've been through a lot of children, and I want to protect them. I want the whole community to protect them. And years ago, when I was a child, it wasn't cultural thing to do. It's not in our culture to do it. So that's what I want you to keep in mind.
Not really. I think I'm loud enough.
Is she loud enough?
I'm loud enough. When you're talking about the gateway of marijuana leading to other drugs, one thing you have to remember is people make their own choices. It's not something that's forced upon everybody. They make their own choices. They are responsible for their actions. They know what they're doing when they go to other drugs. They know what they're doing when they turn to alcohol. Doesn't mean that they can stop, but I have never, ever in the history have read anything about someone going to the ER because they smoked too much marijuana or they had too much medication. So when you're thinking that it's a huge gateway, it can be. That just depends on the environment, the person, and their actions. It's not always a gateway. People know how to say no. You know how to walk into the store, look at all the alcohol, and say no. It's the same thing. I'm done.
regulated first?
No.
No, other tribes have, how would they do it?
Real hard.
Fort Peck has, they're already doing marijuana, Fort Peck is not in Colorado or Washington.
Montana has kind of a funny attitude about marijuana. I think it's the only state where April 20th is a holiday, which is a marijuana joke. Yeah, he knows what I'm talking about.
I heard, Swinomish is looking at getting into medical, just approving medical marijuana, but nothing else. Not growing, not selling, but allowing them to use it. I just seen the chairman last week, and that's what he said. The only tribe that I know right now, is getting close. The Leylands might be getting close, but you'll find out tomorrow.
They're holding a conference.
Yeah.
Can I say something on the comment about the gateway drug?
Yeah, you got it.
Well, yes. I'm a facilitator. I'm a little bit. I have a lot of experience as a defense attorney also. This issue about the gateway drug, and I don't want to go too far into this, but I have people who have explained this, is there's an interesting part of the culture that goes with this is the attraction of any kind of drug to a lot of people is illegality. And there is not lots of evidence, but some evidence, and it's been a strong argument that once you legalize or decriminalize some of these things, they lose their appeal. That also, they lose their appeal as a gateway drug. Now, I don't want to be definitively taking a position on that. I'm in no way trying to support this, but on that particular issue, there are facts and studies out there that can be very helpful. And I know just from medical practitioners that I have talked to and have extensive experience that have worked directly with this concept of people doing stuff just because it's illegal. That helps.
No. So, we've done it for tonight on this, and you'll get your cards in, and we'll try to set up a meeting with experts in the field, pros and cons, and hopefully we'll fill this place. And then we'll work to get a referendum before any official action is taken. We'll work at it. I don't know if we'll have a majority vote. There are some that look at it as just a money-making venture. Some of it is to make it fair, or one or the other. So there's different ways that it's looked at by different members of the council. But hopefully we can sell the idea after more information that we can do a referendum on. Okay?
Put it in tribal tribune, the next, when they're going to discuss it.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, we'll if we can get the right, well, I don't know who the right people are, but we get the experts in the different parts of it. Because there's a lot of them out there trying to come to tribes and sell their business to us. Not just us, but to other tribes. I know Swinomish has talked to 12 different people in the business, from processing to growing to selling. And they haven't decided who they're going to use yet. So there's a lot of people out there that are coming to tribes because we're the no man's land in it. And I hope that we have the patience to do it right, whatever it is.
Find an expert.
Yeah, I'll find an expert. Sure, I will.
Yeah, then I'll go.
Okay. Okay, well, we appreciate everybody coming in. He hasn't been able to talk much. He's got a bad cold, and I'm surprised he hasn't been hacking.
So if we have some other people who'd like to talk to,
I just have one thing to say.
Probably smoking too
If
much.
you want your voices heard on this issue, please send your comment in, or here at executive committee meeting on May 27th. But please send your comments in, so your voices can be heard.
At the last district meeting, we had in paper to the council on a checklist. The lights got fixed, the cases got fixed, the carpets are clean next week, and the rest of it's going to be done this spring, because we've got to get on it. It's got to go to council and get more money.
Thanks for coming, Anna. It was, well, you know, you guys come in after hours, and I think it's really important that we recognize that, you know, that
Oh, I didn't want that.
you know, it's important that we all recognize that it's not an easy. You're the face of it. You're in doing it every day. Are you the expert? Well, you are in some people's mind, and I think you guys did a great job. You know, I talked a little bit to Mike, but again, it depends on your experience or your knowledge of the thing. That young gentleman there is tremendous. Man, that's my go-to guy. Man, he is just amazing. But